Speaker.
I call Clayton Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr Speaker. It's great to be here on a Thursday afternoon talking to the Civil Defence Emergency Management Amendment Bill. And it is very nice, I have to say, to sit in this House or to stand here and sit here and listen to this House having fully supporting this bill through the House and expediting it because I think it needs to be expedited. New Zealand First has certainly been a very proactive supporter of this bill. We would also like to send our thanks to the Minister, Nikki Kay, and her office with the way she's conducted herself in putting this bill through this process, sir. She's been very, very open, very, very helpful, and has extended her offers to us to submit ideas and even amendments as and when has been required. So that just shows the collegiality of it. We see the importance of it, and it is very refreshing to be standing here in the House talking about something that will make lives of New Zealanders affected by these incidents, if you like, weather incidents and earthquakes, a lot easier to go through the tidy up as well as dealing with the actual disaster themselves. It is about the 6 Ps, but we've dropped one of the Ps out because they're probably a little bit of a profanity and shouldn't be spoken in the House, but it's about perfect preparation prevents poor performance. We dropped out that P in the middle there because, of course, that leads on to the 5 Rs that it affects as the risk reduction, readiness, response and recovery, sir. This is a 2-part review. This is the first part. It will be coming into effect after today, just a little bit over 6 months' time. We would like to see that hurried through because, of course, as it has already been lamented by Jan Logie, that this is a time of change. The weather is very, very unpredictable, and we are seeing far more weather incidents that are affecting a very, very wide range of wide-ranging communities right from the far north to the deep south, sir. But the second part of this review is absolutely essential that we actually speed this up to get into this House to put some frameworks and legislations around major events, so the catastrophes of the like that have seen many, many people lose their lives, their businesses and their homes, and had their families certainly jolted with the likes of the earthquake in Christchurch. And we, even this week, had a shake-up here in Wellington. We've had them off the east coast of the North Island, up around Wakatani and Gisborne, sir, and we are always, I suppose, by the nature of New Zealand's land and where we're situated in the Pacific, going to be under that pressure of potential earthquakes and tsunamis. It's also very important to remind everybody that we really haven't thought, although it's on the front of our minds, I suppose, when we've had earthquakes that have created tsunamis around the world, we haven't actually got a tsunami warning system. And in the Bay of Plenty in Papamoa and Mount Maunganui specifically, sir, there is a cry out from those residents in the Bay of Plenty in Tauranga to actually have a warning system that would give residents plenty of time to evacuate their area safely. And I think this Civil Defence Emergency Management groups and these planning from these Civil Defence Emergency Management groups will certainly go a long way in establishing a recognised warning and sounding alarm that would help raise people, get them out of their beds and off to higher ground. So this bill does 4 things, and I think they're very, very good things. In fact, the first thing it does is it mandates the roles and responsibilities for emergency service providers during an event. So it's about who does what. The second thing it does is strengthens the recovery planning. It's about how we do it. And then moving on to it provides a framework to ensure a seamless transition from the response to the emergency to the initial recovery period, sir. And we're talking about transitional notices here. Now, those transitional notices, whether they be local or national transitional notices, are very important, particularly around an event where you've got the powers of conservation of, I guess, of fuel. You can get the police or if it's required, the army or such to actually intervene, to block off areas, to strengthen buildings that might be unsafe, and the ability to remove people from those areas of high risk where they might not be thinking necessarily quite rationally. We can actually now, under this legislation, enable those people to be mobilised and secure areas, ration fuel out and do those sorts of things, which is very good. And I think probably one of the most important things, it gives some framework around who pays for it and how that funding is going to be applied to these local areas that are affected in an emergency. Sir, in the looking around and looking into this bill, a few things have popped up, and one thing which I thought is worth mentioning here, some while ago, they had a MOU between Airbnbs and the Auckland Civil Defence Group, providing free accommodation through Airbnb for those people affected by a civil defence emergency, displaced families, or even the workers of people that are coming into an area to actually help with the recovery and the clean-up of an incident. Sir, these are the sorts of things that the civil defence emergency management groups can actually build in their planning stages, and certainly taking a model out of what's happened in Auckland would be a great start, sir, and New Zealand First would be recommending that this is actually put on around the country, because it does absolutely make sense. Mr. Speaker, New Zealand First does support this. We would like to have a consideration around a Ministry of Emergency Services. I think we're at a position in time where we could amalgamate these emergency services and bring them together under a single ministry. I think with the likes of the role that the civil defence plays in an overarching way of fire, as well as police and the ambulance, sir, that perhaps that framework would put them in underneath that ministry with special powers which fit within this bill to actually put them into a position to direct, I guess, in a moment of emergencies. New Zealand First is doing work on that. It's in our policy, sir, that we have a Ministry of Emergency Services, and of course part of that would be the police, the fire and ambulance, and potentially some other pillars that would come down underneath that, sir. Mr. Speaker, to wrap things up, New Zealand First supports this. We would like to see it run through nice and easily, as I'm sure it will tonight, and look forward to, after the Royal Assent in 6 months' time, having it implemented, as I'm sure New Zealanders all around the country would be happy to see. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.